Good evening, Arizona. Thank you so much for being here. We are overwhelmed by this turnout. We appreciate you so much. I am your Attorney General, Kris Mayes. I want to thank you for being here tonight, especially our Attorneys General who traveled to be here with us for our very first in-person AG Community Impact hearing. We will be holding more of these hearings throughout the country to talk about and to gather information about the federal firings and the DOGE cuts that are harming people and communities across our country. So please help me give a warm welcome again to Arizona to New Mexico AG Raul Torrez, Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield, and Minnesota AG Keith Ellison. So listen, before we start, I know there are some people who don't agree with the stances that we as Attorney Generals have taken, and that is okay. In a democracy, it is okay to have opposing views, but there are also a lot of people here tonight who have lost their jobs or who have had to lay off their employees, and they are in crisis mode. So I want to ask that everyone please remain respectful tonight. We can share our viewpoints, obviously, without tearing each other down. The stakes for many people in this room are deeply personal. This is not just a policy debate. It is their livelihoods, their families, and their futures. So let's approach this conversation, and I know Arizonans will, with respect and empathy and a shared commitment to hearing each other out. Over the past several weeks, my office, along with attorneys general across the country, have filed a series of lawsuits against the Trump administration, not because we don't think that reform or efficiency are needed in federal government. I don't think there's a single American in this country who thinks the federal government is working exactly the way it should. But reform should be done lawfully. Lawfully. Through the constitutional processes that exist for that very purpose, not through unilateral decisions that upend the livelihoods of hardworking Americans, throw entire communities into chaos, or violate the privacy of American citizens. The Constitution provides clear avenues for reforming the federal government. Congress, the people's representatives, is empowered to oversee and shape the federal agencies that serve this country. Changes to federal programs and funding must be made through the legislative process or other lawful means, not by executive overreach or backdoor maneuvers that disregard the rule of law. The lawsuits that we have filed aren't about resisting change. They are about ensuring that change happens the right way. Through legal and democratic processes, not through reckless unilateral actions that destroy the livelihoods of public servants and Americans with cruelty and chaos. And let us be clear, chaos is not efficient. Slashing jobs, gutting essential services, and leaving communities scrambling to pick up the pieces is not efficiency, it is destruction. True efficiency comes from careful planning, collaboration, and respect for the law, not from haphazard cuts that abruptly destroy lives. Listen, heartbreaking emails and phone calls have been pouring into my office over the past month. The impacts to our entire state, and especially rural Arizona, are astounding. And as some of you know, I am from rural Arizona. We are here to listen to those stories tonight, connect the dots on how our communities are being impacted by these cuts and firings, and to hear how attorneys general like us are fighting to protect folks by fighting back against the chaos in our courts. It is important to understand that more than 70% of county health departments' funding in Arizona comes from federal dollars, and local businesses like Cozy Home and Flagstaff are having to lay off employees because the federal IRA funds are being withheld from our state's energy efficiency program, funds that would help a large number of lower-income Arizonans who are already facing high energy bills and to make their homes more energy efficient. Not to mention, it would help with utility bills in a state that has seen a massive increase in heat-related deaths over the past decade. We are fighting because it matters to workers, to families, to businesses and nonprofits, and to the future of our state and our country. When the federal government and Congress abandoned its responsibilities, it falls to us to step up and defend the people that we serve. And that is why we're doing what we're doing. And I want to add, it also falls to all of you. And each and every one of you who is here tonight is a patriot. You are a patriot. And I truly believe that once in a generation, Americans are called upon to sacrifice and to fight for our country and to fight for our future and the future of our kids. And that's what you are doing, and that's what your attorneys general are doing. And so let's get started. Let's get started, because this is about you guys tonight. I want to introduce my colleagues to give their opening remarks. Please welcome first New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torrez.
So I really want to just start by thanking your Attorney General for all of her leadership, all of her incredible hard work, and her commitment to you, to the state of Arizona, and to this country. And, you know, I know there are a lot of complicated legal questions that are likely to arise. There are a lot of nuances that are built into the legal arguments that we've presented, but I think it's important to offer a personal perspective to give you a sense of my motivation and my understanding of how this is impacting lives and how it's impacting communities. I am the son of two very proud public servants. My mom was a career public school teacher, and my father was one of the longest serving federal prosecutors in the state of New Mexico. And one of my earliest memories as a child is waking up in the middle of the night, hearing something in the kitchen. The house was dark, and I remember going into the kitchen as a child, and there was only one light on in the house, and it was a light over the kitchen table. And it was my dad, and he was preparing for trial. I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't really understand what the work was. And it wasn't until many years later that I followed in his footsteps as a prosecutor, that I had some sense of the obligation and some sense of why someone would choose to commit themselves to others. And I hold that memory in my heart, and I think about it every single day, because what I hear in Washington, D.C., from the president and from Elon Musk and from others is a language that is stripped of any humanity. And stripped of any understanding of what truly makes America great. I was raised in the Catholic faith, but my civic faith is tied to my father's service to this country and to one of the things that he made a point of doing when he took me as a child to Washington, D.C. He took me to see the Supreme Court, where he showed me the inscription of equal justice under law, and he took me to the Lincoln Memorial. And he stood with me, and he and I read those words together. And I still believe that the core of what makes America great is our commitment to preserving a country and a government that is built and driven of the people, by the people, and for the people. And what also makes this country great is the notion that we go about our work trying to find the better angels of our nature, and that we do so with malice towards none and with charity for all. It is the generosity of the American spirit. It is the hope. It is everything that my father committed his entire life to doing in service of others. He is not a sucker. He is not a fool. His service to his fellow man and to his country is profoundly meaningful. He was raised in a generation that was specifically called by their president to ask not what their country could do for them, but what they could do for their country. And when he went to work every single day to try and help people, to try and protect people, to try and lift people up and find justice in our courtrooms, he didn't ask anybody if they were a Republican, and he didn't ask anybody if they were a Democrat. He was an American serving others. That's what this country is about. And he is not alone in that. People that spend their lives trying to study diseases or look for cures for cancer or provide some pathway for veterans trying to recover, these are public servants. We don't ask them if they're Republicans or Democrats. We don't demean what they do. We don't degrade who they are. We respect the service. We respect the commitment, the shared commitment that we all have to one another. And look, I understand, as the Attorney General referenced, that not everyone agrees with the actions that we've taken. And as a former federal prosecutor and a federal employee, I can tell you I have been in so many meetings that I wished I could have a greater voice on the impact of a dollar spent or the efficacy of a policy decision or making government effective and smart and impactful. But you don't do that through chaos and disorder. You don't do that with mindless destruction of federal agencies. And you don't do that by disrespecting and dehumanizing America's public servants. You just don't do it. So if you take nothing away from this tonight, and I'm sure that there are proud public servants here tonight, remember that these are our friends, these are our neighbors, these are our fellow Americans. They have children, they have families, they are doing honorable work, and they deserve our gratitude. And if you want to make America great and you want to make the government work, then do it by following the law, by respecting the Constitution. Do it in a way that brings all of us together and rediscover what makes this country truly exceptional. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here today. My name is Dan Rayfield, and I am from the state of Oregon. Go Ducks. I'm from Corvallis. I'm a Beaver fan up here, okay? Watch it. The Ducks went to the Big Ten, sir. That's a different hearing. Oh, my goodness. I can't believe you did that to me. Last night, as I came from Oregon, I was... not University of Oregon, but as I flew down, I was sitting in an airport, and what was incredibly important to me was to put my phone on and try and listen into what happened last night, the State of the Union. And I sat there and I listened. The state of confusion is right. And as I sat there and listened, there was one thing that was absolutely missing from the president's comments last night, and that was the impact of the decisions that he and his administration are making that are having on all of our communities across this country. And that's why I found it incredibly important that as a team of Democratic attorneys general, we are going around this country to listen to you. Because if the president is unwilling to listen to you and how these things are impacting our communities, our public services, there's public safety, we will do it for him, and we will travel this country to be able to listen to you. And that's why it was so important to be here today. And I am incredibly thankful for all of you that took time out of your day, your evening, when you could be doing so many other things to share your stories with us here tonight. So as we dive into this important discussion, I want to take a moment to emphasize something that is absolutely central to this issue. The president does not have unilateral power to simply disregard Congress's decisions, to dismantle essential services and parts of our government. The Constitution is clear. When Congress allocates money for the federal government, a new administration cannot prevent the money from being used for its stated purpose. In other words, while the president may be a powerful person, he does not have some sort of superpower that lets him travel back in time to veto the decisions that have already been approved. And that's the whole point here. If the president had worked with Congress to make budget cuts through legal, legislative process, we wouldn't be here today. But that's not what's happening. These moves by the administration are as legal as they are reckless. And as attorneys general, it is our duty to make sure that the law is followed and that our system of checks and balances is respected and that public servants are not unjustly removed from their positions because of political agendas. Across this country, from Oregon to Arizona to New York, over the past month, we have witnessed a disturbing pattern of federal workers being fired, pushed out, or silenced. Our office in Oregon has been inundated with calls and emails from people affected by these unprecedented and unlawful terminations. And I'm talking about people who work in our national forests and Department of Veteran Affairs, workers at our Bonneville Power Administration and the IRS, all let go with no notice, and in many cases, decades of public service. The stories we're hearing in Oregon are heartbreaking. One email received from a worker from the Portland IRS office when he lost his job, when right around Thanksgiving he learned of this stage 3 cancer had returned. Then just 1 week after President Trump's inauguration, on January 26th, he received his fork in the road letter that essentially said he could resign or risk being downsized, that's right, downsized, out of a job. He chose to continue working and underwent his cancer surgery on February 3rd. 2 weeks later, while still recovering from this life-saving procedure, he was fired. What happened to him is careless, It's inhumane, and as he said to us, to tell devoted civil servants without any proof that their performance is inadequate is an injustice and is illegal. Another person who contacted us worked at the U.S. Geological Survey in Eugene, Oregon. I'm sorry, we're getting back to the ducks. She joined the USGS after earning her master's degree and spending years of service in the Peace Corps and AmeriCorps. She was working on efforts to improve communication in the aftermath of earthquakes and also assisting scientists researching bird flu, among other things. This job gave her a chance to continue a life of public service, and it also gave her the opportunity to purchase her first home. But she had to back out of escrow on February 14th when she was fired through some boilerplate letter received by thousands of federal employees. And she later lost a home, and we lost a dedicated public servant in the state of Oregon. These are just two of the countless stories, I imagine many stories that we will hear tonight that we've heard in the past few weeks. And what's behind this massive federal firings? A new federal department created without congressional approval and with apparently absolutely no oversight, no transparency, and no accountability, which is again why we are here tonight. All overseen by a president's wealthiest donor who is operating without any official government title. We have a system in place for 220 years that has relied on checks and balances. It's based on the principle that no branch of government is too powerful. Trump and Musk are trying to sidestep that and grant the executive branch unlimited power. They're taking money in Congress that has been approved for schools, medical research, for emergency assistance, public safety, and road construction projects, and they're wiping it out with the swoop of a pen. Thank you again for being here tonight. I am proud to be here representing the Oregonians, and I'm proud to be invited here by Attorney General Mayes.
How you doing, Arizona? It's good to see everybody. We got a lot of Arizonans, Americans here tonight because you care so much about our great country. You may be wondering, why would an attorney general from Oregon, New Mexico, and Minnesota get on an airplane, come all the way here to be with you tonight? And the real reason is we all love Kris Mayes. But friends, as much and as awesome as Kris is, the truth is we're all experiencing the same thing you are experiencing. And tonight is your night. We want to hear from you. I want to tell you, there's a quote from a guy named Abraham Lincoln. I don't know if you've ever heard of this dude, but Abraham Lincoln said, in this age, in this country, public sentiment is everything. With it, nothing can fail. Against it, nothing can succeed. Whoever molds public sentiment goes deeper than he who enacts statutes or pronounces judicial decisions. We believe the public doesn't like a lot of things that have been happening from Washington recently. And we believe that if you have a chance to tell your truth, to listen to your neighbors, you just might get up there on that microphone and tell your own story. You just might, get out there and reach out to somebody who lives in your building, lives on your block. That is so critically important. There's an African proverb. It says, when the strong person walks in the room, all backs straighten. And you know what it means? It means that we all can get courage from each other. We all can get courage. Because, quite honestly, who here has been a little nervous about some of the stuff they've seen happening? Right. So it's good for us to be together. It's good for us to hear from each other. And it's good for us to know that we all are committed to making sure that we are a nation of laws and not men, and that we are going to make sure that this country's promise is delivered on through a democratic electoral process, not just some guy who issues executive orders as he feels like it on one given day. I'm just gonna I'm going to wrap up right now because I want to hear from you. Look, we have filed a bunch of lawsuits. Birthright citizenship. We froze the freeze. You know, we're saying that the appointments clause of the Constitution is being violated by having this unelected oligarch just rummaging through our government. We have filed the lawsuits and we haven't lost yet, folks. But as I said, the saving America will not be won in a courtroom. It'll be won in the court of public opinion. It'll be won by you. Let's have a great night.
All right. Let's get started. Uh-oh, a little feedback. We're going to start, and I'm going to call 3 people up at a time. And Sophia here has the microphone. So we're going to start with Kristen Frey. So Kristen, could you come forward?
Karen Potter and Sandy Bear, if you want to come line up too, that'd be great.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Karen Potter and then Sandy Barr after. I'm already not doing my job.
Are you guys ready? Hello, my name is Kristen, and until last week, I worked with vets at the Phoenix VA. I work as a music therapist with veterans who have unique medical challenges, TBI, polytrauma, PTSD, Agent Orange exposure, and for many years the VA has embraced innovative treatments such as recreational therapy and creative arts therapy. I'm a board-certified music therapist. I use music all over the VA, with veterans in inpatient and outpatient settings, the hospital, hospice, substance use disorders, and long-term care. I use music to treat pain, depression, anxiety, learn new coping skills, and help veterans adapt to civilian life. It was my dream job, and it was something that I worked over 20 years to achieve. I was heartbroken to receive an email on Monday, February 24th, that said I was terminated immediately. That meant that not only could veterans no longer access the services I provided, but I could not follow my own code of ethics, providing termination services to the veterans. Normally, when you end music therapy, you're supposed to give them recommendations, give them suggestions, encourage them to set their own goals to interact with music on their own. But these veterans, some of whom are very fragile, were unable to have that closure, which puts them at risk for depression, anxiety, or even suicidal ideation. My supervisor and her chain of command had no knowledge of this email. It came straight from Washington, D.C. and DOGE. 2 of my colleagues were also fired that day, all probationary staff. This has strained the entire department. Since we've been fired, the Phoenix VA has had to cancel a number of music therapy and recreation therapy groups. We're unable to meet staffing ratios in the community living center, and we're unable to provide programming as required by Medicare guidelines. A couple examples. 1 staff member was removed from a position with homebound veterans. 1 staff member was moved from a national position with the wheelchair games. Inpatient recreational therapy programming has been reduced. Palliative music therapy in the infusion clinic with veterans who have cancer has been canceled. A virtual music therapy group, something I started to address the needs of homebound veterans, that has been canceled. A number of other programming has been canceled as well on a one-to-one basis. Hopefully it will return, like therapeutic guitar, a music ensemble, and other programs. In total, last week, 84 veterans did not get to go to their music or recreation therapy appointments. 84. These senseless cuts are hurting real people. It's shameful that we aren't supporting the women and men who volunteer to serve in the military, and it's shameful that we are not providing the care they deserve. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen. That obviously was incredibly impactful. Next up, we have Karen Potter from SWEEP. Karen?
Thank you all so much. Good evening, and thank you for being here tonight. My name is Karen Potter. I'm a proud Arizona native, a new mom, and the wife of a dedicated firefighter. I've also served currently as the Arizona representative for the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project, or SWEEP, a nonprofit dedicated to helping everyday Arizonans save money on their utility bills while building a stronger state economy through the hard work of energy efficiency. So tonight, I'm here to talk about why that matters and why the devastating impact of these federal freezes are already having on customers every day. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, Arizonans have watched their cost of living skyrocket, especially their utility bills. So maybe just for a moment, let's just do a very short poll. Raise your hand if you feel that your energy bills have gone up in the last 5 years. I think that speaks for itself. So one of the most effective ways we can ease this burden is through energy efficiency. It is more than just a cost-saving measure. It is a powerful tool for improving our daily lives. It means using less energy to achieve the same results, whether it's keeping our homes cool, cooking meals, or powering essential devices. By making our homes more energy efficient, families can cut their utility bills, reduce pollution, and enjoy safer, more comfortable living conditions. But the benefits go beyond individual households, as energy efficiency can lead to a cleaner air, a stronger power grid, and a more resilient future for all. But despite all of these benefits, and despite of the clear data-driven history of energy efficiency since the 1970s, the freezes are having a devastating impact, and many programs from the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law are now currently placed on hold until further notice. So these funding freezes are creating barriers for advancing vital programs that help homeowners and communities adopt energy-efficient technologies. For many, these programs are key to reducing energy costs and improving their home comfort. A delay in funding has led to missed opportunities to weatherize homes, install energy-saving appliances, and upgrade heating and cooling systems. So thanks to what the Inflation Reduction Act has made available for tax credits, already more than 46,000 Arizona households have been able to improve the value of their home by adding insulation, repairing duct and air sealing, replacing outdated windows, and installing electric heat pumps. However, if these freezes continue, homeowners will have less opportunities to increase the value of their homes while contributing to the local economy. So let's talk about the economy next. Small contracting businesses were set to have a major boom from these programs, with the energy efficiency industry already rising to more than 40,000 strong across the state of Arizona. However, these jobs, I'll just say, these jobs do not require a college degree, and they allow people to support their families without a four-year university education, of which there are very few opportunities like that today. So without these resources, more and more contractors will continue to lose their jobs, and unfortunately, many in Arizona already have. Even though they have participated and were hired to do these jobs specifically for these programs, unfortunately, they're out of luck. And since the 1970s, the Arizona Weatherization Assistance Program has helped more than 20,000 income-eligible households weatherize their homes and make their homes more safe and secure. And thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, weatherization has been extended, and since 2022, thousands of homes have been able to weatherize their homes, making them healthy, secure, and more energy efficient. So if these freezes continue, more than 800 households this year will be left vulnerable to indoor heat-related illness and even heat-related death due to lack of proper cooling equipment in their home. Weatherization contractors and practitioners were ready to help these families prepare for Arizona's extreme summer heat, but now that critical work, as we're fast approaching the hot summer months, is on hold until further notice. So I will just say, in a state where overnight temperatures are remaining above 100 degrees, air conditioning is not a luxury, it is a human right, and it is a lifeline. So I will just wrap up today saying that we are so grateful for all of your support and for listening to the stories today. So we believe now is the time to act. We must restore and expand these resources and ensure that every Arizonan, no matter their income and no matter where they live, has access to the benefits of these life-saving programs. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
That's right.
All right, before Sandy starts, we're going to have next up Jessica Leach, and then Dr. Jill Gibson and Dr. Steve Brown. Go ahead, Sandy.
Good evening. My name is Sandy Barr. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the director for Sierra Club's Grand Canyon chapter, which is the Arizona chapter. I've lived in Arizona most of my life. I love Arizona. I love the lands. I love the people. I wanted to thank you all for being here for Arizonans and for people across the United States, and for pushing back on this harmful agenda that has resulted in the thoughtless firing of thousands of people, including those who care for our public lands. And I want to really focus in on this because Arizona is really blessed. We have 28 million acres of public lands in our state. 3 national parks, Grand Canyon, Saguaro, and Petrified Forest, as well as places like the Superstition Wilderness, that's part of the Tonto National Forest. Sonoran Desert National Monument, that is Bureau of Land Management lands. These places provide extensive opportunities for recreation. They provide key wildlife habitat and corridors and habitat for plants, and some of these are found no place else on the planet. Public lands provide us with clean water and clean air, and Arizonans love and enjoy our public lands. And I also want to, in recognizing these lands, recognize that they're all indigenous lands, and we need to keep that in mind. These lands are under threat due to actions by the Trump administration, including the firing of thousands of public lands workers who care for public lands and the people who visit them. At Grand Canyon, which is one of 22 national park units we have in Arizona, it's been reported already that the lines are double the wait times that they should be at this time of year. And we know that there have been more than 1,000 National Park Service employees that have been fired without cause, really. And down south at Saguaro National Park, they are closing the visitor center on certain days, and that means people don't have access to important information that can help them enjoy the lands, but also be safer on the public lands. And that's another thing I want to mention is for the national forests, which I think have probably gotten the biggest hit as far as losing employees. There are a lot of people that are, providing information about trail conditions, and that helps keep people safe and informed about what's going on. They do restoration. And for those of us who like to be out hiking and camping on our public lands, they provide important services. That also means fewer people out there protecting cultural and natural resources. And we saw some of those suffer during COVID when there were fewer people available to help out with that. I want to mention I'm not the only one that loves our public lands. There was a recent poll that found that Arizonans unanimously view national parks and natural beauty as essential to our state's identity and way of life. They also agree that the government has a responsibility to protect public lands, that indigenous tribes should play a role in protecting and managing ancestral land, yes. they credit public lands with guaranteeing outdoor recreation. So protection of these lands is important culturally and, recreationally and ecologically, but it's also really important economically. And I wanted to add that as well. These actions that are being taken by this administration are not just unwise relative to our enjoyment and access to the land, they harm our economy. Outdoor recreation generates billions of dollars for the Arizona economy. And in 2023, there were 4.7 million visitors to Grand Canyon National Park alone. They spent $768 million in nearby communities that supported more than 10,000 jobs and $350 million in labor income and about $1 billion in economic output. So these lands are important to our economy. Again, I'm just going to wrap up, and I'm just going to say thank you for being strong, for supporting the lands, for supporting the people, and also for supporting the laws that are supposed to protect both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica, please. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Leach. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm the CEO for Prisma Community Care, the artist formerly known as the Southwest Center for HIV and AIDS. And I want to start off by saying that as a queer person, HIV and STIs are not limited to my community. Amen. Right? I don't want to ask everyone in the room, to verify that everyone's having sex, but I think it's a pretty safe assumption that 75% of the room probably is. Which means... Yes, which means everyone in this room, on some level, your communities or you are at risk for HIV and STIs. When the government froze funding, the funding that was provided to us through these grants allowed us to be the largest free HIV and STI tester in Maricopa County. Because realistically speaking, you want to come to us, probably not county, no disrespect to county. And we can also do treatment and prevention on site. We provide vital, necessary primary health care, mental health care. We provide case management and nutrition for low-income individuals living with HIV. All of these things are at risk because we were told that we were focusing on DEI and gender ideology. So in order to serve our clients, our community, not all of whom are queer, we were told that we had to take the very fabric of who we are out of our language. The grants that were written were specific for these communities to ensure that they could be protected so that all communities are protected. What you have done is allowed us to continue our work. 21% of my funding comes from federal grants. It covers 40% of my staff. I've already had to lay off 3 individuals that were vital to our operations. So what I need to ask is that you continue the fight and recognize our communities need you more than ever. Thank you.
We will.
Thank you, Jessica. Next up, we have Dr. Joe Gibson. Dr. Joe Gibson.
Good evening. I am speaking to you tonight as a physician who has dedicated my life and career to caring for patients seeking sexual and reproductive health care. I am trained as an obstetrician gynecologist, and I am doubly board certified in obstetrician gynecology and complex family planning. In addition to delivering babies and performing gynecologic surgery, I performed abortions for the past 15 years. I currently supervise 25 advanced practice clinicians and physicians in the delivery of essential reproductive health care at Planned Parenthood, Arizona. As a physician dedicated to this field, I have weathered the long storm of government interference into my intimate practice of medicine. I have navigated clinically useless rules and regulations, been forced to perform medical actions without any benefits to my patients, and been required to give patients information that I know to be untrue and misleading, all because non-medical politicians touting junk science are dictating how I take care of my patients. I have been restricted in this state from providing life-saving abortion care. I continue to have my practice heavily regulated. But we, the Arizona people, fought back, and the power of our voices restored the right to abortion in our communities. And we must continue to resist and double down on our efforts. The onslaught of misinformation, threats, and the propagation of non-evidence-based treatments and therapies coming from the new administration harms our patients and erodes the public's trust in the medical system. Since the election, I have heard patient after patient express fear that they will not be able to access care that they know to be critical to their current and future well-being. I took care of a patient last week who was crying, panicked about her access to contraception. She wasn't a candidate for the longest-acting reversible contraceptive device we have, a 12-year IUD, and she had to settle for a 5-year implant. She asked me, what am I going to do in 5 years? Will I even be allowed to have birth control? Will I even be able to afford it? Especially for my transgender patients trying to access gender-affirming care. The threat isn't remote. The reality is already here. In droves, patients are submitting paperwork to ensure their gender marker change requests are processed before that option disappears. Patients are seeking to stockpile medications knowing they may no longer be available. I've been receiving requests from patients previously receiving care at Phoenix Children's Hospital, which has halted gender-affirming care under a recent EO, begging to be seen. The fact that these bullying actions of our government are targeting the already most marginalized communities should infuriate us all. Clinical decision-making belongs to the clinician and the patient, never to our government. The threats to our immigrant community and the deterrent effect they pose is also particularly heartbreaking. Patients will not seek care when they fear that their health and personal data may be accessed by those who are seeking to deport them. I am thinking of an immigrant patient from South America, a person who is a mom trying to take care of her children, who was violated multiple times making her way to the United States. She needed an abortion as a result of her rapes. Everyone deserves dignified health care and to live with dignity. To wrap up, I, like so many other physicians, have worked my entire adult life reading, studying, analyzing, and doing direct training to be equipped with the immense privilege of providing health care. Imagine my dismay when I, along with so many colleagues, was forced to hastily download clinical guidelines and literature from the CDC website before these trusted resources were removed. These are guidelines that help physicians navigate different medical conditions to find the most appropriate birth control method. These guidelines provide treatment algorithms for STIs. How are literal facts being canceled? Why is evidence-based literature being censored? What a disgrace to have the knowledge and the training and the skills to improve the health and lives of our communities and to not be able to do so at the direction of politicians. The medical community cannot tolerate this unacceptable interference. Our patients' lives depend on our resistance.
Thank you. Hello, Attorneys General. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Dr. Steve Brown. I'm a family physician here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I came to talk about impending Medicaid cuts. I'm here for my patients tonight. Currently, over 2 million Arizonans are covered by Medicaid, including over 750,000 kids aged 0 to 17. The federal budget cuts could take coverage from 550,000 of the most vulnerable Arizonans. Martin Luther King said, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. I take care of people from age day 1 to age 100, and 1/3 of my patients are covered by Medicaid, which we call access here in Arizona. Losing coverage for many Arizonans will make our state less healthy. It'll put our rural and safety net hospitals at risk, like the Attorney General said earlier. I could tell you dozens of stories, but I'm just going to choose 2 to tell you tonight. Last week, I heard from one of my patients, Mrs. B, who takes care of her husband, Mr. B, who's debilitated from a stroke. He's also my patient. I share this story with their permission. Mrs. B has breast cancer, which has metastasized to her bones. It's still treatable, but recently she had to tell me that she lost her access insurance and will have to put her cancer treatment on hold. Obviously, that adds to her stress to deal with all the insurance issues. And so how many similar stories would there be like this if we took healthcare away from more people? And now I'll tell you a success story. Last week I saw a newborn baby, 3 days old, with her mom and dad, who were both first-time parents. The baby was having trouble gaining weight in the first few days, and I was worried. So I talked to the mom and dad, and we came up with a plan, including following up in 2 days. And they came back in later. The baby had gained weight. She did great. The parents were absolutely beaming. But I wondered what would happen if that baby didn't have the insurance coverage to be seen by a family physician at a vulnerable time in her life. So I really appreciate you being here, listening to these stories, putting names and faces and voices to all these amazing people that are here to call attention to the unjust and inhumane action, including changes that will strip away health care from people that need it most. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Next up, we have Dr. Michael Robert, the superintendent for Osborne School District, Violeta Ramos and Felipe Carranza, both from the Osborne School District.
Good evening. I'm Michael Robert, Superintendent of the Osborne School District, one of the elementary feeder school districts into Phoenix Union, and you guys are all seated right now within the Osborne School District. So I'm also here to talk about the teacher and school leader incentive program, which is something that we're involved in. We were involved in it until a couple weeks ago. The goal of this grant was clear: to ensure that every student, regardless of their background or zip code, had access to excellent education. For us at Osborne, it means something profound: putting our students first. One of the key elements of this grant is the role of master teachers, instructional coaches who work with teachers to provide weekly professional development, classroom observations, and provide critical feedback. These coaches are instrumental in helping our teachers refine skills, especially our newer teachers, and to field test research-based instructional strategies rolled out across the entire campus. Additionally, mentor teachers lead grade-level teams and help their peers through coaching, fostering collaboration, and the sharing of best practices. Our school, in this grant, we get about $3 million over 3 years, so $1 million annually for this grant. These funds help support salaries, benefits, additional duties for teachers, and leadership coaching, and a large portion of the funding, almost $500,000, goes towards performance-based compensation, which is tied to teacher performance, student success. Another portion supports professional development and additional supports for our educators. However, on February 18th, we received troubling news that the Department of Education issued a cancellation notice for our grant, effective immediately, citing diversity, equity, and inclusion. The letter claimed that our grant, which is a component of the Teacher and Student Leaders Grant, was inconsistent with the federal priorities around DEI. What's concerning is that there was no specific mention or evidence in the letter as to how our grant promoted DEI over merit. The focus of this grant has always been on excellence in education, performance-based compensation, student achievement. As a result of this cancellation, Osborne's now facing a significant loss. $500,000, I mentioned, goes towards performance-based compensation. We've been working 2/3 of this year. The work's done, but the compensation's not going to be there. There's also $250,000 in salaries. I've heard, still to be paid between now and June 30th. And we've heard stories from people here. We're going to hear more stories tonight about people that have lost their jobs. I'm proud to say that Osborne's going to honor our contracts through June 30th, through the end of the school year. That's $250,000 that we did not have budgeted. We'll pull it out of reserves, and I'm proud of my CFO for great leadership and fiscal stewardship, and of my governing board for standing behind me and saying we're gonna honor these contracts. I also have my board president standing right behind me. I've got a meeting with her tomorrow. We're planning our agenda for March. Unfortunately, because of this grant cancellation 18 months before expected, one of the things I have to talk to her about tomorrow is putting on the agenda for our upcoming March meeting a reduction in force, a reduction in teachers, in school leaders, in teacher leaders on our campuses. I'm proud of our teachers, and I'm deeply saddened by having to have that conversation. I was just in DC last week to watch one of our school leadership teams presenting nationally to their peers about the excellence that we've been able to attain in Osborne, yet I had some of those same people on a Zoom call with me yesterday to tell them about this impending RIF. It breaks my heart for our community. Osborne School District's a district, I've got 7 school leaders, I've got 150 teachers, I've got 2,500 students that are counting on this. I used that time in DC to reach out and visit representative senators across the aisle, both chambers, both sides of the aisle, to remind them that their authority is being usurped. They allocated these funds, and you guys are standing up for process. Please continue to do that. I'm here to talk, I'm here to give voice to this, but that just is not enough for me. I'm also seeking reversal of improper cancellation of grants. So I've got 2 other members from my district who are going to be able to talk about that impact directly and on the families and on our kids. So thank you guys for being in support of communities and children.
Great job.
Hi everyone, my name is Violeta Ramos and I am a proud product of the public education system. I'm the proud daughter of 2 immigrants and I was born and raised here in Phoenix, Arizona. I am the board president of the Osborne School District, and I have 2 other board members who are standing behind me, Rhiannon Ford and Leanne Greenberg, and we all agree, we have 2 others, they just couldn't be here. We're all here because we want to represent our teachers and what we are losing in our community. So as elected officials, we are elected by our community to serve them, and unfortunately through these unjust cuts, we are now breaking that promise that we made to our community. That promise that we are breaking affects everyone in our community, our teachers, the parents that trust us, but most importantly, the students who are our future. It is unfair that this power grab is simply using the keywords to cut important grants that will be leaving important members of our community that help us grow without the stability of a position. As you mentioned earlier, things need to be done the legal way and not by usurping or canceling our authority. Thank you for listening to us and for advocating and fighting so that as board members here, we can keep our promise to our community.
Good evening. I'm here to share how these federal job cuts are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They are real people, real families, and real consequences. In June, I will lose my job. I am fortunate that the Osborne School District, will continue to honor my contract until then. As a father of a 3-year-old, this isn't just about my career, it's about my child's well-being right now. I'm struggling to keep up with the $800 a month tuition for a preschool that ensures that she has a safe and stable learning environment. Without my job, I don't know how I will afford to keep her in preschool. She is at the preschool where she's at now. I have dedicated my career to education. That is 25 years of my life. My aim as a teacher, as a principal, and as a director has always been to support students and to strengthen our communities. But now I find myself facing uncertainties, wondering how I will provide for my own family. The stress of this situation isn't just financial, it's emotional too. It's the fear of not knowing what comes next or having to make impossible choices between my daughter's education and basic needs. And don't get me started on immigration. As the proud son of immigrant parents, My parents fled their home not because they wanted to, but because, as my mom says, we were mice living in the mouth of a serpent. I echo, yes, she said that. I echo what you're hearing tonight. Families across Arizona and across the country are being forced into instability because of these job cuts and funding freezes. The decisions are not abstract policy shifts. They are life-changing disruptions that affect our children's future. I urge you to continue to recognize the human impact that these actions have. Stability for families like mine should not be a luxury. It should be a priority. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Felipe. Next up, we have Liza Merrill and Elise Guidas and Adrian Udarbe. So, Liza, here we go. And then Elise.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lisa Merrill. I have been a certified marketplace navigator for over 8 years. I serve individuals and families throughout the state of Arizona apply for Medicaid, SNAP, and marketplace health insurance, which are all federally funded. Some data from 2024. 2 million Arizonans rely on Medicaid and CHIP, with the federal government covering over 80% of the $22.2 billion that it cost. Almost 340,000 Arizonans were enrolled in the marketplace, 90% of whom rely on federal subsidy that helps pay for their premium. Arizona has almost 1.5 million residents who are Medicare beneficiaries, which is a lifeline program for the elderly and people with disabilities. By the way, 46% of births in Arizona were financed by Medicaid. I recently assisted a couple who had been working at labor-intensive, low-paying jobs when the wife was diagnosed with lung and uterine cancer. Her husband had to quit his job to care for her. She is in constant pain and has just started chemo and relies on Medicaid to pay for her treatments. She still greets me with the most beautiful smile. Some of the families I serve have special needs children, are single parents, or are taking care of elderly parents. One of the hardest things to do is to tell an elder that her Social Security income is $20 over the Medicare income limit. Her income barely covers the rent, let alone food. So we try to find other resources, but even those are quickly becoming scarce. We've assisted families who sought asylum after helping the U.S. government fight wars in their lands. They were interpreters, lawyers, and doctors. It was too dangerous for them to stay in their countries, so we gave them safe harbor. Federally funded programs gave these individuals and families a chance to rebuild their lives on this continent. Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP are among the social services Congress and DOGE aim to cut to benefit the wealthiest 1%. These programs are the safety nets for working families and eventually for the fired federal employees. Just like all Americans, the individuals and families do not want handouts. What they want is a hand up, so they can work and continue to provide for themselves and their families. They want to be able to eat, have a safe place to live, and have access to equitable and affordable health care. These are some of the basic needs that everyone should have, and not just a chosen few. Isn't this what the American dream is all about? AGs Mayes, Torrez, Elson, and Rayfield, we, the people of Arizona, ask that y'all stop the calculated, cruel, and intentional dismantling of the programs that support and assist the most vulnerable members of our communities. We are here to speak because people have been suffering. People will needlessly die. We need your help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elise. So next we have Adrienne. Adrienne?
No, I'm Elise.
Oh, you're Elise.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was okay. Sorry about that. That was why. Okay.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Go
Hi.
ahead.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Elise Gaitis, and I'm executive director of a nonprofit called Activate Food Arizona. We offer community-based food solutions in rural, urban, and tribal communities throughout the state. In the Valley, we're most known for our fleet of mobile produce markets called provide in across Arizona as well as in the surrounding border states and Mexico. I'll briefly share from two perspectives: ability to operate our businesses and also from our customers' ability to access the foods that they need for themselves and their families. Administratively, several grants that we've relied on and planned on for the next year have been terminated, which has caused me to not only change program plans and put critical food initiatives on hold. It eventually could obviously mean layoffs for my organization as funding resource for food programs become more and more scarce. A lot of our funding partners are going to foundations and they're inundated, and there's only so few dollars that they have to give out anyway. So our pool of funds is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The food that we sell to community comes from local food hubs, which aggregate from small-scale farmers throughout Arizona. In the last 12 hours, 2 of our direct suppliers have told me that their businesses will go under if these freezes aren't lifted pretty imminently. If they close, it'll have catastrophic consequences for the 60 or so family farms that they source from, but it's also going to cut off our food supply for local food economy entirely for our markets. Of course, the closing of these businesses goes far beyond a few people losing their jobs or few acres that have food already in the ground going to waste, which in and of itself is terrible, but it would have ripple effects on the countless other businesses and community members, including my own. Farmers make their crop plans in alignment with the USDA funds, meaning that there's already food in the ground that would have been paid for using the funding now frozen by the federal government. Without those dollars, the farmers currently out the cost and the sales that they'll get back from the food that they would sell. In our community, our customers on their SNAP benefits for fear that the administration will cut off their benefits entirely. Regulars of mine have told us that they're too afraid to get the foods that they need and are foregoing basic food staples in case their benefits are cut off next month. We're talking about seniors and families already experiencing significant financial barriers and food access issues. Our markets are very affordable and they do offer some relief to our customers, but they're pretty much useless if our customers can't access them or won't use their benefits to get the foods that they need. At sites where we provide access to food for patients enrolled in a diabetes prevention program, we've seen drastic dips in our sales, mostly because those customers are too afraid to come shop with us on the bus. Sometimes clinic staff are shopping for them and discreetly getting the food to the families. Other times they've just completely fallen off the radar because they fear an ICE raid at any moment. These patients already experience food insecurity and low income and have very few resources outside of our food programs, so their absence from our services is going to have detrimental effects to their health and well-being. I am setting up alert protocols. I'm handing out Know Your Rights cards, but it all feels futile. I can't convince my customers that it's safe to shop when it's not. I've built my program over the last 11 years into a trusted, reliable, and safe source for food. We've built lasting relationships with the community, our neighbors, who rely on us to feed their families and give them choices in an already limited food environment. What is happening is heartless and it's cruel and will have catastrophic consequences for the families that we serve and for our organization for years to come. Thank you so much for listening.
Hi, Attorneys Generals. My name is Adrienne Udarby. I'm the Executive Director of Pinnacle Prevention. We are a statewide nonprofit here in Arizona with a huge aspect of our mission dedicated to cultivating a just food system. I am so fortunate to work with partners like Elise, farmers, food insecure folks all across Arizona to make sure that our farmers are getting the good food that they grow to the folks that need it the most. These programs that have been most deeply impacted by the federal funding freeze not only exist and have been hurt here in Arizona, but in each of your states too. We have about 50% of our federal funds that are currently frozen coming from USDA. The last direction that we were given was that they will not be reimbursing for any services beyond January 19th. So we have farmers that have put out those dollars that work on contracts that are for reimbursement, that were promised that they were going to get infrastructure dollars and funding to help them prolong and expand their growing season here in Arizona, which is critical amid our heat and our different climate crises, and they have not been reimbursed and have no type of date in sight as to when that will happen as well too. These programs not only help to generate revenue for farmers, but they also are ensuring that folks who are the most food insecure get access to those good foods. And so for every month that passes, we are out $500,000 in revenue to our farmers. That's also $500,000 in food that goes back to community members as well too. I have been fielding numerous calls from farmers that are operating in the red and are this close to having to close down their farm businesses. This funding freeze not only impacts those that are participating in federal food assistance programs, but all of us, because food is a fundamental human right, and we need to eat every single day to survive. And if we don't have a robust local food system that's here to support us and help us, it impacts us all, and we're all going to be feeling it when we go to pay for our food and rising food costs. We already are today. So I'm begging you to help keep our food and farming businesses open and alive and thriving so that we can continue to support folks like Elise, all of our farmers, and all of our food insecure Arizonans.
Adrienne, can I just ask a follow-up question? So what you and Elise were saying is, it sounds like USDA is still not sending you the money, so we've seen this in other areas, it sounds like they are violating the TRO that we won. This is important information. We've had to go back into court twice now, I guess, guys, to get what's called a motion to compel. The farmers are still not being
Correct. I have 4 pages worth of all the programs that are not getting their funding here. I'm keeping it brief up here, but yes, effective January 19th, we have not received any funding and have not given any dates as to when we can see that funding come back.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Very important.
Okay. Next up, we have Ahmad Rashad and then Francisa Gill, and then we're going to open it up further. Come on.
I'll hold the mic for you and then see the time.
Good evening, everyone, and the Attorney General and your colleagues and all the citizens here. My name is Ahmad Rashad Bahaduri. I am the co-founder and Vice President of the Afghan Tucson community. I drove from Tucson to meet you guys here, and as a former SIV holder, I want to make it a little clear. SIV is a special immigrant visa for people who serve with U.S. Army and State Department overseas. I want to speak for many who are at risk because they supported the U.S. and Afghanistan. These individuals put their lives in line for our mission, and now turning our back on them puts them and their families in danger. They are being targeted for their affiliation with the U.S., and we must honor the promise we made to them. As someone that benefited from resettlement agencies when my family and I first arrived in the United States, cutting federal funds to resettlement agencies hurts SIV and refugees living in our communities. These agencies provide essential services like food, housing, medical care, and help with funding, job, and school for their children. Without this support, these families are left in a difficult, certain situation. The funding cuts have shattered the dreams of those who fled violence and persecution, trusting that America would offer them safety and fresh starts. These refugees have already risked everything to escape danger, and now they are being told that the only hope of surviving in safety in the United States is no longer an option for them. Breaking our promise to those who serve with us and those that are in need goes against the values that America stands for. We must stand by those who stood with us and keep our word to those that are suffering from the situation. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Francisca Gill. I am the Refugee and Immigration Services Community Integration Program Manager at Lutheran Social Services. Since 1970, LSS has rebuilt their life with this program assists those fleeing war, violence, and persecution from countries such as Sudan, Afghanistan, Syria, Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo, and others. These families arrive in the U.S. after years of suffering, having survived conflict, displacement, and refugee camps, only to now face yet another crisis in Arizona. The recent stop work order and freeze on foreign aid have created a domestic humanitarian crisis, leaving newly arrived refugees in an alarming state of uncertainty. The executive order and the immediate stop work for refugee resettlement agencies across the state of Arizona, cutting off critical reception and placement funding, leaving recent refugees' arrivals in the U.S. without the safety net they were promised of critical services for their integration and support into self-sufficiency in our state. Now they are facing lack of access of medical care, employment support, and the list goes on. There are 4 resettlement agencies offices in Phoenix and 3 in Tucson. We are all being impacted in similar ways, with loss of resources, staff, talent, expertise, and experiences. Our organization is also a recipient and a sub-recipient of federal grants through our national partners, Global Refuge and EMM. LSS has still not received already rendered and under a contract that is supposed to guarantee payment. Fair communities, which include medically fragile refugees. We are owed $1,513,000 through our national partners. The impact this lack of reimbursement has had cannot be understated. We had to let off 48 staff members and have impacted negatively our refugee clients in self-sufficiency in Arizona. LSS is both contractually and morally obligated to continue supporting those who have already suffered so much but cannot continue to do so without being paid for services. We have received in this fiscal year 300 arrivals in Phoenix and 148 in Tucson, including children. The total number of arrivals from all the resettlement agencies is around 1,072 individuals. Lastly, the reduction in arrivals meant Many of those were family members traveling to our here. Some blocked within a day or prior to arrival. This has been heartbreaking for thousands of people emotionally and reduces their natural family support systems that could have assisted further with integration and family self-sufficient trajectories. This is so inhumane. I'll ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Francisca. And I think I heard you say you just had to lay off 48 employees. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, because of this. All right.
All the resettlement agencies in Arizona are going through the same.
Okay.
Whether I'm still here fighting the good fight with all of you. Thank you.
Right on. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Tim Cox, then Brent Fine, and then Paul Russell. So come on forward, Tim, Brent, and Paul.
I'll hold the microphone and you can see the time. Try and stick to the minutes. Yeah. Nope, right here, right on the X.
Okay. All right. My name is Tim Cox, and I work for the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, which is a small civil rights agency in the United States Department of Labor. We enforce EEO and non-discrimination laws over federal contractors. We not only investigate the compliance of federal contractors' obligations, we investigate discrimination complaints, and we also help federal contractors conduct outreach in order to recruit qualified applicants. This past year, I spent a lot of time with community-based organizations and trade schools trying to pipeline people into CHIPS Act money that was going to happen this year. This is our restructuring plan, which leaked to the Washington Post recently. OFCCP is to be cut by 90%, which will close 50 field offices and eliminate 429 jobs. So I am currently waiting for a RIF notice. And this is from Project 2025's Mandate for Leadership. This is on day 2 of this administration, a 60-year-old executive order was revoked, signed by Lyndon Johnson, Executive Order 11246, and it's designed to ensure federal contractors do not discriminate and recruit qualified females and minorities. We do enforce 2 statutes for individuals with disabilities and veterans. So my issue is with veterans, but these cuts will most certainly have a ripple effect. Those practitioners of this work for federal contractors will most likely lose their jobs. I've already seen one person who has lost their job. Those companies that propped up to maintain legal and consultation help for these federal contractors, these people will go out of business. So this will have a ripple effect of thousands of jobs. But most of all, this affects job seekers. It affects employees that work for federal contractors and 2 of our most vulnerable populations, which are individuals with disabilities and veterans, which I am one. And yes, thank you. For those who don't know, OFCCP is the only federal agency that takes complaints of discrimination from veterans. And this is reducing our agency down to nothing. Some people may have heard that there is an agency that was just reduced down to 1 person, a political appointee today. Senator Kelly wrote a letter to OPM earlier this week, and in his letter he stated that nearly 6,000 veterans have already lost their jobs and been terminated from federal service at an unprecedented rate, and will all enter the civilian workforce with less protections. And while this blueprint strives to eliminate OFCCP, of course, they're just bringing it down to the bottom levels to where it's essentially going to be ineffective. And so, while my time is limited, I just wanted to say this. This isn't subjective. This is evidence. This is evidence. In less than 2 months, this administration has proved itself to be the most anti-veteran administration ever. Thank you for your time.
This won't take long. My name is Brent Fine. I worked for Kris Mayes 20-some-odd years ago, and one of the projects I worked on was called Efficiency Review. We were tasked with looking at all the agencies to find where we could save money. But we never went into it thinking we have all these stated objectives in advance. We wanted to find savings. I think we ended up finding about $300 million, but it took us 6-9 months to do it. And it was it was a good process to do it. And then we presented it, and no one ever thought that they were going to do it all by executive order. It was all meant to plan for the budget, make some changes. Some things you could do, like savings on efficiency on electricity and things like that, you could do, but you had to go to the legislature to get it done. So this plan that's going through right now in Congress makes no sense to me, and I wouldn't think it would make sense to anybody. It's just, they keep bringing up common sense. This is not a way you would do it. And not only that, it's already starting to, when I wasn't working for Kris, I worked for the Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics at the state of Arizona, where we collected employment data. There's already data coming out now showing that consumer confidence is dropping. The Michigan survey came out. An ADP survey came out today that showed only 75,000 jobs were created in February, and that doesn't affect government jobs. That survey doesn't. So my guess is it'll probably be even greater. But not only that, all of these cuts by these organizations you're bringing out, they're going to have multiplier effects. Not only the federal ones, but theirs. And so you're going to see not only if they lay off 200,000 people, and when they're bringing up that they're going to people today, I heard that number, lay off half of IRS, you're going to lose consumer confidence, but it's also going to have this multiplier effect times that number, and we could be in a recession in 6 months very easily, because that data, when it comes out Friday, on have a cascading effect. So it doesn't take a lot to go into a recession. And then government money will go down, the federal and why would you be getting rid of half of IRS during tax time? It makes no sense. So none of it makes sense, but I don't know, I think when it finally, the economics starts hitting everybody, because everybody is going to be affected by this. Not just the people lose their jobs. The retirees, they have pension funds. The stock market will start going down. It's not going to be something that just affects a small group of federal workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent.
Again, thank you for this opportunity. I do know Kris prior. We went to high school together, so we were classmates. And I believe one of the attorneys general stated that, that we're here because we love Kris, but I loved Kris first. So. Good afternoon, good evening, Attorneys General. I am Paul Russell, the Vice President of the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation. I appreciate speaking today about the severe consequences of these federal budget cuts on Indian country, including my own nation. The situation in Indian country is dire. The massive budget cuts and firings implemented by the Trump administration have left us in a state of extreme concern. The impacts on tribal governments and economies are devastating with potential consequences including reduced services to tribal members, layoffs of tribal government and enterprise employees, and reduced or eliminated grant funding for key projects. The uncertainty of the future is perhaps the most alarming aspect, as we are left questioning how much worse things will get in the coming weeks and months. Some real impacts have already been experienced. First, the pause or elimination of the Bureau of Reclamation grant funding threatens two major projects at Fort McDowell. Planned improvements to our golf course, a project that supports jobs, tourism, and economic self-sufficiency for the nation. Without these funds, these improvements stall, leading to lost revenue and cut jobs. Critical well rehabilitation at our Fort McDowell Tribal Farm, which provides revenue to our nation and economic opportunity for our people. Without federal support, we risk losing farmland productivity, which will impact revenue for our community. These cuts stifle our ability to be self-reliant and violate the federal government's trust responsibilities to honor tribal economic development. Second, closing 3 Bureau of Indian Affairs offices in Arizona, including the Western Region office in Phoenix, will directly harm Fort McDowell. This office supports tribal governance, law enforcement, and land management, key functions that will now be delayed or neglected due to the closure. Our law enforcement and emergency response rely on timely Bureau of Indian Affairs support. With this office closing, public safety in our community is severely at risk. The shutdown also hampers infrastructure projects that require Bureau of Indian Affairs coordination, creating bureaucratic bottlenecks and slowing essential services. These budget cuts not only undermine tribal sovereignty and economic self-sufficiency, but also erase years of hard-earned progress throughout Indian country. The reversal of this program is a bitter disappointment, forcing us to take steps backwards instead of forward. On behalf of the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation, I respectfully and strongly urge you to take a stand against these devastating cuts. We need you to demand that the federal government honor its commitments to Indian country. The future of our tribal communities depends on your actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up, we have Paula Morell and Clarissa Vela, and then I think it's Wayne. Yeah, Wayne Varianata. Totally butchered that, I'm sure, but Paula, Clarissa, and I think it's Wayne or Wade.
All right. Just try and stick to the 3 minutes, and I'll hold the microphone.
Good evening. I am a citizen, a veteran of the United States Air Force, and a concerned mother, and thank you. I wanted to also say thank you to the first speaker who was here on behalf of VA employees. The VA saved my life. I received a phone call from my son, who is a federal employee, also a veteran, assigned to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, regarding one of his friends here in Arizona, a veteran and federal employee fired from CISA, and I'd like to read this. My name is PJ. I'm here in support of our family friend, Kyle, and federal employee, a federal employee. Like him, who have found themselves in similar situations. Kyle is a disabled combat veteran, a federal employee with perfect performance ratings, who had recently accepted a promotion. He transferred from DOD to CISA, and 2 weeks ago, Kyle was wrongfully and unjustifiably fired after 5 years of federal employment by Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. He was fired without cause or forewarning. His supervisor wasn't even notified he had been fired and wasn't aware of this action until Kyle informed him that he had received the email. Kyle has been a faithful public servant who has devoted his life to upholding the Constitution and protecting the safeties and freedoms of Americans. He should not have been on probation, and he should not have been fired. If Trump and Musk can do this to Kyle, who will be next? My son, like Kyle, is a veteran and federal employee with 10 years service. My son recently accepted a promotion that required him to pick up his family, sell his house and vehicle, and relocate to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. He, too, was placed on probation because of the promotion. Fortunately, his probation ended back in October 2024. But who can guarantee that the firings won't later impact my son and others like him? Currently, my son is receiving daily harassing emails from DOGE demanding that he resign, demanding that he respond with 5 things he did at work this week. And as a mother, I am tormented knowing that my son and his family have sacrificed so much by accepting the assignment on Gitmo, only to be subjected to relentless harassment by the government he serves. This president and his billionaire buddy are destroying careers, disrupting lives, and causing untold stress with American households. We must stand up for these federal employees. We must fight for them to be reinstated to their jobs, and we must ensure that the felon in the White House respects the laws of the land. Thank you.
Thank you.
Try and stick to the minutes.
Yes. Hi, my name is Clarissa. Hi, y'all. So I might take like 14 more seconds longer than the 3 minutes, but I just wanted to show you something. You put out a call to action to Arizonans, and we listened. So on here, I had this laminated. It cost me a lot of money. This is a 43-foot roll, and it has all of the things that you asked for that your constituents wanted you to know about. So I would roll it out, but they asked me not to, so I'll respect that. But there's a lot. From DOGE to healthcare to everything. I would love to let you keep it, but we love to put it up at all of the protests or rallies, whatever they want to call them. So, but I would love for us to take a picture with it. And for all the people who were there yesterday, can you please wave your hands and let them know? Yes! You put out a call to action and we're responding. Sorry. Okay. My name is Clarissa Vela, and I am a part of Profit First, the Profit First Project. We are a nonprofit organization. We have a lot to say because I got a big mouth. I am an Arizona proud Latina of the Osborne School District. I'm college educated. I'm currently studying for the paralegal professional thing. So if you guys could please put in a good word for me with the bar, that'd be great. I probably don't need the mic, I'm really loud. So I'm just gonna read you this. It says, a lot of us are here because we are angry, and I just want to remind Republican elected officials that we will remember these unhumanitarian political career-ending policies at the midterms and the primaries. Hey, let her cook. A lot of us are here because we're worried for the future for ourselves, our parents, grandparents, and families. We fear for the future and education of our children, especially those like my son with special needs. We worry about our LGBTQIA+ and trans friends as they are being targeted, harassed, and murdered for simply choosing to be themselves. We're here today for a myriad of reasons, not just immigration and dreamers. We are here to remind people that unless you are indigenous, you are an immigrant, no matter how many generations your family has been here. Sorry. We're here today for all of those Americans who rely on the soon-to-be gutted socialist government programs like Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, TANF, WIC, Social Security, VA benefits, cancer research, reproductive freedom, DDD, IEPs, DEI, the Department of Education, NOAA, the SAVE program, USAID, AID, and women's voting rights, all being currently dismantled by Donald John Trump. And I would like to just point out that immigrants and dreamers pay taxes at a higher tax rate than Americans, collectively paying almost $100 billion a year into programs that most Americans rely on, but they are not eligible to benefit from, all while Donald Trump and his sugar daddy, Elon Musk, pay zero in federal taxes while profiting and grifting off the backs of hardworking Americans, immigrants, and dreamers. We are here for career civil servants and American soldiers who are being fired en masse for simply holding strong to their oath to the Constitution and the American people. We are here for Capitol Police officers and first responders who have lost confidence in the law and our justice system, who now suffer from PTSD and harassment after being attacked by violent, treasonous insurrectionists on January 6, 2021, now pardoned by the insurrectionist-in-chief, Donald John Trump. We're here for local police who are being forcefully mandated to separate families. Their job is to serve and protect, not discriminate and deport. We are here for 92% of black women who voted for democracy. We are here for black and brown people who are still being targeted as criminals in America. Well, there are literally entire television networks dedicated to white-on-white crime. We are here for black and brown people who are only included in the conversation when people talk about us as laborers, but we are more than just our labor. We are doctors, we are lawyers, we are scientists, we are engineers, we are nurses, teachers, senators, Supreme Court justices, and even future presidents and presidentas. We are more than your crop pickers, your housekeepers, and your baby machines. In closing, I just want to take a minute. Let me turn around right here. So in closing, I just wanted to take a second to speak directly to MAGA. We are all going to suffer from the consequences of these actions. And I personally want to welcome you to peacefully and non-violently protest alongside with us against all of these issues, because this is bigger than one political party. This will affect us all. It took Hitler 53 days to destroy a democracy. So thank you. So as the proud granddaughter of a World War II veteran and the proud daughter of a Vietnam veteran, I will say this: hold the line!
All right, well, that's going to be hard to follow, but we have, is it Erica Mock, Diane Rodriguez, and then Kyle Ron.
Okay. My name is Wayne Warrington. Apologies, apparently, for my horrible illegible handwriting on my name.
Oh, sorry.
I am a sustainability and climate action consultant, and I work with organizations across multiple industries, helping them to identify ways to reduce their resource use and plan for the impacts of climate change. Because my work falls within a targeted area of federal oversight, specifically sustainability and climate action, we are experiencing increased scrutiny on our efforts. This scrutiny creates both personal and professional challenges, as well as uncertainty and aggression towards professionals in my field. From a consultant's perspective, I've worked with organizations across multiple sectors for several years, including cultural organizations that rely heavily on philanthropic support, including quite frequently local, state, and federal funding. These institutions all play a vital role in their communities, but they often lack the financial resources to engage in climate action independently. Federal funds, including matching grants, are critical in enabling them to meet sustainability and climate-related goals. The freezing of federal funds and the ongoing firings at the federal level have created an environment of volatility and uncertainty for these organizations. For many cultural organizations, this means struggling to move forward with planned projects or complete projects that are already underway. This instability is compounded by the turbulent nature of administrative decisions, lawsuits, and shifting priorities, making it difficult to navigate long-term planning. This disruption affects more than just these institutions, though. Cultural organizations, from museums and children's centers to zoos and aquariums, are community hubs that foster engagement and education. With the increased economic instability stemming from these federal actions, attendance and participation are at risk. We have seen from previous disruptions, like the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2008 financial crisis that people experience a reduction in capacity to engage with these organizations because of the uncertainty in their own financial situations. Today, it is federal policies that are creating that uncertainty. Many of the organizations I work with are located in regions highly impacted by climate disruptions, including flooding from heavy precipitation, storm events, and our own known heat. These cultural institutions are not only adapting to their own climate risk, but are essential in educating and supporting their communities in also navigating these challenges. The current federal climate of uncertainty has already started negatively affecting their ability to fulfill this role. I have experienced directly that the federal firings and funding freezes have threatened the stability and effectiveness of organizations that serve all of the members of our community in a variety of ways. I applaud your efforts in listening to public experiences and urge you to continue sharing the real impacts of these federal filings and funding freezes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, good evening. My name is Erica Mock. I use she, her, ella pronouns, and I'm the Chief External Affairs Officer for Planned Parenthood Advocates of Arizona. I'm here to express our concerns over actions being taken by the federal government against the Medicaid program specifically. This administration, under the advisements of DOGE, is determined to wreak havoc by dismantling the regulatory state. But we are determined to ensure that Arizonans who come to Planned Parenthood health centers can get the care they need when they need it. We're deeply concerned over the dismantling of the nation's Medicaid program, also known as Access, here in our state. If funding for Medicaid is cut, and if the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services continue to be targeted, it will be detrimental to our patients and community. Planned Parenthood patients use their Medicaid insurance to access care like cancer screenings, STI testing and treatment, contraceptives, HIV prevention treatment, and much more. According to the Center for American Progress, the proposed cuts would translate to nearly $19 billion in Medicaid cuts here in Arizona over a 9-year period. This means that our Medicaid and CHIP enrollment would be reduced for at least 528,000 Arizonans. Many of these are people who rely on Planned Parenthood for their health care and would have nowhere else to turn. Our 7 health centers across the state primarily serve women, people with low income, Black, Latinx, and Indigenous communities, LGBTQ+ people, and others who are already facing multiple barriers to accessing care. Many of our patients have insurance through Medicaid and other federal and state programs for uninsured and underinsured people. If funding to Medicaid is slashed and if CMS is shuttered, the lives of the most vulnerable will continue to be put at risk. We're a trusted partner in the communities we serve. These federal actions are an attempt to continue breaking the healthcare system as a whole, instead of working to expand access to essential and life-saving care. By cutting Medicaid along with other resources, we'll only continue to deny Arizonans and millions of Americans the care they need. It will lead to further reduced access to contraceptives, cause spikes in STIs, and further exacerbate the Black maternal mortality crisis we're seeing, just to name a few things. Public officials are supposed to help the communities they serve, but instead the federal government is working to deny millions of people access to essential life-saving health care. We urge you to continue taking actions to ensure that the American people can have their access to health care protected. Thank you for your time and your continued support.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm speaking for Diane Rodriguez. She had to go home, so I'm speaking on her spot. How many of y'all like to go to the airport and wait in the long TSA lines? Well, if it keeps going this way, it's only going to get worse. My name is Jeff Thiemann. I've been a proud TSA employee for 22 and a half years. I'm not just an officer. I'm a father of 4 young kids ranging from 6 to 8 years old, and I serve as a local union steward for TSA AFGE 1250, which serves Arizona and Nevada. For our TSA workforce. I stand before you today not just as an employee, but someone whose livelihood and whose family's well-being is directly impacted by the recent budget cuts and firings. These cuts don't just affect numbers on a spreadsheet. They affect real people, people like me, my coworkers, and our families. When staffing is reduced, we aren't just losing colleagues. We're losing part of our support system, the men and women we rely on to keep travelers safe every single day. Fewer officers mean longer lines, increased stress, and greater security risks. That's right. It puts an enormous strain on those of us who remain, forcing us to work under tougher conditions with fewer resources, all while knowing that our own jobs could be next on the line, I'm sorry. As a father, this uncertainty is frightening. I have 4 children who depend on me, not just for financial stability, but for the security that every parent wants to provide. The thought of losing my job or seeing my coworkers struggle to make ends meet is heartbreaking. We've given years, decades in many cases, of service to this country, and we deserve better than to be treated as disposable. We must stand together to push back against these cuts. We must remind decision makers that national security is not something that you cut corners on. The work we do matters, and the people behind the uniforms matter. Let's fight for our jobs, our families, and the safety of the traveling public. Thank you.
So my name is Kyle Ron. Paula kind of introduced my story back there, and I actually just got back from D.C. last night as Senator Gallego's guest for the joint address.
Right.
So I don't really need to go into my backstory or why I'm here. There's something I would like to talk about. Last night I heard it in person of, this is the end of unelected bureaucrats, and I'm pretty sure that DOGE is an unelected bureaucrat. But I think we're kind of missing a lot of things with our cascading impacts. I think we've identified it here tonight. My focus is national security, but I think we're identifying all these cascading impacts through all these different programs, grants, everything like that. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I just hope that we can kind of all come together and figure out a way forward. I think these cuts can be done in an efficient, thoughtful way. It doesn't have to be done with a sledgehammer. I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you, everybody, for being here and supporting everybody as they go through this. For the federal employees that are here, I appreciate your work. You're not alone, so thank you. I didn't have anything prepared. I literally just got in town, so.
Is that it? We are running close to the end of time here. Do we have 1 or 2 more people who really passionately want to speak? We actually have 100 more people who still want to speak, believe it or not. Sophia, my colleagues, we have enough time for 1 or 2 more?
Sure.
Okay. And then we want to... Yeah, we did start a little bit late. Okay. Well, yep. Okay. All right. Yeah, and as you come forward, please talk louder. Because we've got more people, we're going to shorten up the amount of time. Tell us who you are and what grant program or what program you're talking about or where you work. That'd be great. Yeah, 1 minute each.
Hi, I'm Michael Pierce. I am a U.S. Army combat medic. Vietnam shows you where my age is. And I've been around. I've seen enough of these budget cuts to know that there's something more serious at work here. And when I hear Department of Government Efficiency, I wonder, where did the U.S. Congress create this department? We have the Office of Management and Budget. We don't have this. It is run by an oligarch who is the richest man in the world. Bernie Sanders tells us that at the president's inauguration, there were 3 of these oligarchs in attendance. Their combined wealth of these 3 people, the combined wealth of just 3 people was greater than the combined wealth of 175 million Americans. That's no democracy to me.
That's right.
Now, you are doing a great job in the courts fighting this. There is a legal concept called quo warrantis. By whose authority? And I'm sure that that is in your pleadings, this issue. Now, for us, we may have to be called to the streets eventually. I'm not looking forward to it, but we might have to. I am pursuing a second career as a history teacher. The joke is, I teach history, there's no future in it. But I do have a wealth of history to give us ideas for now. And I'm referring to Frederick Douglass, who in another time and another crisis of the United States where the Union was in jeopardy, made the following observation. It is called Frederick Douglass's social equation. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have found the measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed on them. And these conditions, they will continue until they are resisted with either words or blows or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. And we have to send a clear message to Elon Musk and all the other oligarchs. Here in America, the people rule, and we may not have billions, but we are the people.
This is going to be the final comment, and then we'll turn it back over to the AGs for their final comments.
I'm so sorry. Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to try to be very fast. My name is Dana Strickland, she, her. I'm an Army veteran, and I became a trauma therapist to work specifically with current military veterans and their family members. The cuts to the VA, the Veterans Crisis Line, and disruptions to TRICARE are harming our service members, our veterans, and their families. I am one of the few, if not the only provider in the entire West Valley that specializes in working with survivors of military sexual trauma. One of the only, and the West Valley is huge. On average, the survivors I help have gone through 7 providers before they find me. I am in network with TRICARE and have been since 2019. TRICARE has not paid providers for any services on or since January 1st of this year. They are continuing to give us the runaround with billing, and this means that TRICARE beneficiaries for any kind of medical, physical, mental health care cannot get services anywhere. Providers are dropping off left and right, and we cannot afford to keep our practices open. We're being faced with potentially laying off our own employees, and I have nowhere, if I close my practice, I have nowhere to send my clients. No one else can work with them. What are they going to do? So we're probably all familiar with the statistic, the underestimated statistic of the 22 a day. Way too many. One is too many. Many veterans they continue their service as federal employees, as law enforcement officers, as first responders, healthcare workers, and teachers. And because of these DOGE firings, the threats of ongoing budget cuts, RFK Jr.'s threats of government wellness farms, no, on top of TRICARE's apparent lack of care and concern about correcting their internal issues, that underestimated 22 a day is only going to go up. These reckless actions are literally going to cost service members and veterans their lives. For providers, it's going to impact our ability to continue to offer any kind of services, and our practices will close.
Thank you for that information. Thank you.
Thank you. And if anyone else had comments they wrote down, you can give them to me before you leave.
Sophia, we want to do one more. I see some passion here. We'll do one more, and then we're going to. What I want to say is, look, we want to hear your stories. If you have written testimony, I'll stay back, and some of us will stay back and talk to you personally. If you want to talk to me personally, we want your written testimony. If you haven't brought it with you, please email it to aginfo@azag.gov.
It's on the flyer outside.
It's on the flyer outside, and then we can take your written testimony. So let's do one more.
My name is Joshua Abbott. I worked for the USDA until February 13th. From what I understand, I may be getting my job back. I don't know. But what I will tell you, and the young lady who ran the food pantry and for food insecurity, why they're not getting paid is because there's one woman that works at the USDA downtown who processes those payments, and she's not allowed to do so. I left that office. She was the one lady who kept some of the paperwork in line. I was the person who helped underwrite the loans and all the grants to make sure that people in this state, in rural communities, the very people that voted for these people, I'm the one that goes around and makes sure that they get the money. And I'm the one that goes around and makes sure that the money is being properly spent and make sure that they maintain the property and the government's investment, your tax dollars. I was that guy, and I was the first one let go. Now, I'm a 10-point preferred veteran. Not that I give a crap about that, because everybody goes, you're a veteran, you need to be protected. No. There are plenty of people in these organizations throughout the federal government who are oh, God. Sorry. They're civil servants that have dedicated their lives to these things. And excuse the parlance, but they're getting shit on right now, and it's crap. Absolute garbage. They turn around and they do this. Now again, I've only been there for 10 months, and I learned on the fly, thanks to plenty of education that the government provided me through GI Bills and all kinds of other things, right? And I got most of my education here in Arizona from Embry-Riddle, ASU Law, and Thunderbird School of Global Management. That's where I learned all these things that are going to help me succeed in this particular arena. I spent 10 years almost in the United States Army, serving this country. Now, with those degrees, but I didn't do that. I went back into public service. Chris, we met before because I was running an LD27 for the state Senate seat, and I decided that when this job was offered to me, I could help rural Arizonans more by taking this job than I could by just serving the people of Peoria. And I regret that now. Honest to God. And these are the same cuts that are going to hit either one of your states. AG in New Mexico, I work with your state engineer because he covers 2 states right now. Because in the last 2 years, we haven't hired a new engineer for your state. He covers all the USDA projects in your state. And I think they just gave him a little bit of relief right before I walked out the door, or was escorted out the door. So this is going to affect every single one of your states, especially in rural areas, which every single one of your states has. I'd like to thank you for your time. Keep fighting, people. Keep fighting.
All right. I hate to do this, but we are going to have to wrap up. Would my colleagues like to just say a few? Well, it's getting dark. That's apparently a clear sign. But Keith, do you want to start?
All I want to say, friends, it's been a tremendous honor for me to listen to you. Trust that we will be back here, all over Arizona, all over this country. We have another town hall like this coming up in Minnesota on March 20th. We got another one coming up in April 16th. We are listening to the American people, and the information you're supplying to us is indispensable to the fight we're waging in the courts. But we need you to win that fight of the court of public opinion. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for taking the time to share your stories and be here tonight with all of us. It's incredibly important. We can't do our jobs without your stories. It's incredibly important. Thank you.
So one thing came through for me tonight, and that's not just that
Donald Trump and Elon Musk are violating the Constitution, and they're degrading people that have committed themselves to public service. They've broken their word to the American people. They have given their word to farmers, to doctors, to people who are doing good, honorable, and decent work in this community and all over this country. And we believe in this country, in America, in honoring our word. And if Donald Trump can't find his way to doing that on his own, we will drag him into court and make sure he honors his word.
Listen, thank you all for staying so long. Thank you for your indispensable information. You saw us taking notes. We have recorded this. This was the first Attorney General Town Hall. You were the first of many across this country. And I want you to know, as we end tonight, I know, we heard so many terrible stories and stories of grief and hardship on Arizona families, and this is happening across this country. But I want you to know something, that these AGs, all 23 of us, are working our hearts out, for you and to protect this country and to make sure that future generations can enjoy what we have enjoyed. And I want to give you a couple of details. We meet, all 23 attorneys general meet every single day together by Zoom. And we are working, our lawyers are working their hearts out day and night, sometimes throughout the night and on the weekends on these lawsuits. We're up to, I think, 7 guys, lawsuits? At least 7 lawsuits. There will probably be one more this week, and there will be more after that, as long as Donald Trump and Elon Musk and DOGE continue to violate the United States Constitution. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah, I guess so. These people want to talk about it. Hi, guys.
Please take this and will you
Yes.
please contact me?
Yes,
I'm an extreme
absolutely.
victim.